You go through your day. I got to do this. What do you think about? Oh, I got to take the car to the garage. I got to do this. I got to take the kids here. I got to. We create agendas for ourselves during the day, and we get things done, don't we? We solve problems. How do you decompress? Where do you go? What do you do to decompress, to take time to think about what does all of this mean? If you don't have the answer right away, don't feel alone, because most people, we don't. When we were all locked down during COVID, I used to do spiritual practices every week, a video. I hope maybe some of that helped during that time, but do you have a way to decompress, to look and to say, okay, this is where I am right now, and this is the meaning of what I'm going through right now. This is what Jesus is talking about with these guys, with his disciples. Can you hear it? You can picture the scene, can't you? You know, he's helping these guys out in ministry, in their growth in ministry. And so they all come rushing back. And what are they saying? Look at all we did. Look at all we taught. The people were so excited to see us. We did all of this healing. All new ministers fall into this trap, by the way. I know I did. When I was a hospital chaplain, I was known as Chaplain Charlie because my name is Charlie and I was a chaplain. And, you know, it was, oh, labor delivery. Oh, Chaplain Charlie. And I thought, wow, I'm something else. I'm getting some stuff done. People love me. I'm important. I'm helping people. Until I was exhausted and I couldn't help anybody anymore. I was slap worn out. And then people didn't really want to see Chaplain Charlie anymore for a while because Chaplain Charlie was downright grumpy. I'd be staying in the on-call room down in the basement, and the phone would ring at 2 o'clock. Oh, God. What is it now? Yes. All right, I'll be up. It just happens. So Jesus says to his disciples, right when they're in the midst of how great they're doing, how important they are, he doesn't say, I'm not a Greek expert, but the Presbyterians maybe take 3 seminars on it. Presumably, I guess, because of stuff like this. Gene, can I get one more? I'll tell you what this picture is in a second. He uses a Greek word, and it's not, why don't you guys come with me for a little bit? Let's just chill out. Let's relax a little bit. He uses a Greek word called dute, which means come here now. Get over here. It's kind of like if you were walking your dog kind of goes off on his own for a second and starts sniffing a place in the grass, and you look over and there's a dead animal and your dog's about to dig in. And you go, get away from there. That's what this verb dute means. Get away from there. Come here now. Then he says, we're going to, and it's not really a solitary place like the scripture says, what it really means is a lonely place, a lonesome place. It can even mean a wasteland. Jesus is saying there's got to be a balance. There's got to be a balance. And you've got to take some time to reflect and process what's going on in your life so that you can recharge and go back into life again. So he says to them, come to a deserted place. They go into the boat. Then they come back, and what happens? Oh, God, there's all the people again. But because he's been in the boat and he's been away from it, Jesus is able to be filled with compassion for the people. It says, actually, he felt it in his bowels. He was so filled with compassion, he felt it in his bowels. But it's because they spend some time away that he's able to process things and teach us to process things. This is the pattern Jesus is telling us. This is my office door in Afghanistan. Actually, it's not. But this is what I felt like. Has anybody ever had a job where literally, I called it the shuffling boots. And I could sit in my, and it literally was like this all day, to the point to where I just would be like this. I remember one day, I finally snuck away to the DFAC, which is military speak for dining facility, and I snuck back with a salad. Now, my salad in those days was about 3 little pieces of lettuce, ham, turkey, and cheese with blue cheese dressing on it. And Marty used to say, that's not a salad. I was like, yes, that is a salad. And I brought my salad back to my office and I closed the door. And I remember cutting it thinking, oh God, please don't let anybody come. Please don't let anybody come. And I literally put the fork into a bite and lifted it up to my mouth, and right then there was a knock at my door. And I almost started crying. Have you ever been there? You don't have to have had a job as an intel person in Afghanistan to feel that. It can be with kids. If we tump over one more sippy cup full of milk, I'm going to lose my you-know-what. But I remember I said, come in. And I looked, and I'm sure I was a real creep. And this poor woman, Felicia, opens the door. She goes, I am so sorry. I'm like, what is it? We've got an op going down at 1400. You've got to sign this. It's almost 1 o'clock. The general needs it to carry it. You're right. It couldn't wait. It couldn't wait. Give it to me. Thank you. And I think I got about 10 minutes. We have to have a balance. You can do life all day long. Problem solve, problem solve, problem solve. And you never figure out, what in the world are you doing this for? Let me have one more. Okay. Where do you go to re-energize? For me, it's the water. I have to have water. I realize now in almost 2 years of being with you, one thing that I'm missing and I need to find, and I have found it recently, is I have to have water. I was born in St. Vincent's Hospital, right on the St. Johns River. My childhood, I could look out my window and the river was right in front of my house. I had a boat. I swam with alligators. It didn't bother me. I knew what to do if they got aggressive. When I get around water, it sucks the negative energy out of me. And I'm able to breathe. I'm able to empty out so that I'm able to receive more input. Where do you go? What's your sacred place? Is it water? Is it the farm? Is it the mountains? Is it just a place where, like Jesus says in Matthew, when you pray, go to your inner room and close the door? Is there just a place? Is there a time that you set aside? Because if you don't, you'll be a deathbed, what I call a deathbed problem solver. I'll tell you a quick story about that in a minute. This is my way of doing it, and I'm pretty bad at it. And I can tell in my body when I'm not doing it enough. Do any of you have that feeling ever where you're like, okay, there's something wrong, I'm off kilter, I feel a little depressed, or I'm anxious? Instead of doing my spiritual practices, do you go, where's my phone? I do. I have to take the time to have balance. What about church? Church has to be that too. Bobby Lou comes in here and hangs these things. There's different colors. There's candles over here that are lit. There's a smell to this place. There's these, all of this is supposed to connote and get you to start to feel like out there can be whatever is going on out there. But we're taking an hour or so here together to recharge community and as individuals. We have one more, okay? They start to sort of wrap up here. I had one of those moments when I was at Georgetown University Hospital. I remember it's about 2 o'clock in the morning and the phone rings, and nurse says that a man was just admitted and he has to see the chaplain. Okay. Start getting dressed. It's hot in the room because the air conditioning doesn't work. I probably walked 9 miles in the hospital that day because that was a typical day at the on-call chaplain. And I'm not real happy about it. And I go upstairs, I go to the room, and I'm like, Chaplain, get in here. There's a man, I would say, he's in his probably mid to late 60s. Doesn't say anything to me, he just reaches out and grabs my hands, and he's staring at me. And they're trying to get the IV in, like, Mr., I won't use his name, I can't remember, Mr. Jackson. You have to let us put the IV in. And he's holding on to me, just staring at me. And we just sat like that for a while, and they gave him some medication, I guess, and he finally, looking at me, fell asleep. And I stayed and I prayed for him and went to bed. Over the next few days, there was a woman in the chapel every day crying. And one day she motioned me over, and it turned out it was this man's wife. And she started talking to me. They were Catholic, but her husband wanted to see me, I guess because I had been the one that had been there. And then our director came in and said, Charlie, come over, hey, listen, there's a man in 714. I said, yeah, I know, I'm heading up there. He got up there, and he would want me to share this story with you. He said, can you hear my confession? Give me absolution and give me last rites. And I said, I can hear your confession. I can offer you absolution. And I can do what we Presbyterians call the prayer for the sick and dying, but I cannot do the sacrament. I will need to find a priest for you. He said, no, I want you to do it. I said, okay. And I listened to his confession. As an engineer, he was a water engineer. And his mission, his ministry, a lot of it had been to bring fresh water to communities in Africa. But he had also built huge water projects. If you're familiar with the Washington, D.C. area on the Maryland side, near the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, there's this giant water complex. He was the lead engineer for that. And he was ready to retire. And 18 months or so ago, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, right as he was getting ready to retire. And for one reason or another, the doctor said, we feel like you've actually got 5 to 7 years. And so he made a decision to work 18 months and to get everything sorted and separated. He didn't have to do it, but he was a problem solver. He's an engineer. He booked a cruise for him and his wife and his children and his grandchildren. Took care of the house, took care of the grandchildren's college, took care of this, that, solved all the problems that needed solving. And now he was going to be dead in 30 days, or less. Taking care of the house and booking a cruise, taking care of all the loose ends, that is a very admirable thing. And this is actually a happy story, by the way, because he figured it out at the end. That life is more than solving problems. And as we sat there and he told me that, and now he wasn't going to go on the cruise, his wife is down crying in the chapel. What do you say to someone when they tell you that? All I could say was, that sounds very unfair. And he said, yeah, it is. And I said, are you angry with God? He said, yeah, I am a little bit. And I said, I can understand that. I think I might be too. He was a deathbed problem solver who figured out at the very end that life is about more than solving problems. Let's not us be deathbed problem solvers, is what Jesus is telling us, modeled for us. That's the relevance of what Jesus is talking about here today in our daily lives. You've got to find your private room, your sacred space, if it's every day, if it's once a week, and process what's going on and figure out the meaning for yourself. The greatest command is this: love your neighbor as yourself and love God. If you don't empty out some of that stuff that takes you to here, if you don't empty that out in a way, in a sacred way that allows you to process that, you won't be able to minister to yourself, which means you won't be able to minister to others, and this congregation is the ministers. It says so in your bulletin. You have to empty that out and process it so that you can minister to yourself, so that you can minister to others, which enables you to love.